Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's nothing quite like being in this Parliament and hearing the inaugural speeches of members new to this place. I remember not that long ago standing in this place for the first time, a little overwhelmed, but seriously determined about what it could mean to be a member of the Tasmanian Parliament. For me now, I stand here proudly elected for the second time as a member for Bass and look forward to the term ahead, reflecting on what I've learnt in the previous term and the things that I've learnt about being a Member of Parliament. There is a lot of comment made in this place about the need for us to work together and to be positive. There is curious comment about how when someone from this side of the chamber may call account to someone on the other side of the chamber, that's about being negative. But in my reply this afternoon, I want to highlight how being positive, being determined, seeking to make an impact and, thank you, holding this government to account are all of the things that we should do collectively in this place. I do want to focus a little around the portfolio responsibilities I have and make comment about what I seek to focus on in this term, but also how I hope that we can work together in these areas and focus on the great electorate of Bass and highlight some of the areas that I'm hoping that we can bring to fruition throughout the, will it be 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ahead. I just want to start by reflecting, and I feel like it might not be the best time, but I think it actually is important to do, by reflecting on some of the contributions both this morning and in the first week of Parliament from some of the new members, because I've made a personal decision that it is going to be important to hold to account and to seek to clarify things that are brought into this House that are either incorrect or in fact misrepresent people and situations in Tasmania to the point that it could have a unintended consequence on people and communities across Tasmania. And I reflect as the Shadow Minister for Primary Industries in regards to some comments that have been made last week and this morning around some of the most incredible people in Tasmania, our fishers and our farmers. I believe it's really important for us as members of this place to remember when we make comment about the passions and the skills and the contributions that people, whether it be in our cities or in our regions, make to Tasmania, that they do that to the best of their abilities with forethought about the future of Tasmania. This morning there was a comment made that it is no longer safe to eat the fish or the produce from Tasmania. Now, I get that when speaking with passion, sometimes things run out of our mouth and we don't quite have time to catch them before we say them. But I suspect, having just heard a well-presented inaugural speech, that the member for Lyons who made those comments did it with intention. Now, I know that right now in the north of Tasmania there is a young lady riding horseback across the north of Tasmania to St Helens to raise money for Rural Alive and Well. And why on earth would you do that? Well, you do that because you believe in and you want to care for the mental health and well-being of our fishers and our farmers and the people in Tasmania that make a contribution to the great brand and reputation that we have, not just only here in our own state and the country, but across the world. And when a statement is made that it's no longer safe to eat the fish or the produce in Tasmania, that actually has a real impact on individuals. It has a real impact on the people on the land or on the water that are fishing and farming, but it has an impact on their families. The children of those people hear those comments and wonder why that would be said. The extended families, the workers, the communities that they live in hear those comments, and I'm sure are impacted. We know that the mental health of farmers at the moment and of our fishers are under strain, and it is time now that we pull together to work positively and in collaboration to support them. And I'd cite just recently over the weekend the incredible thing that happened to the farmers of King Island with the Need for Feed Australia, a project of Lions Australia supported by Lions in Victoria and Tasmania, and in fact people making donations from all across the country to ensure that there's feed and fodder for the farmers that are struggling on King Island. And there were these magnificent images of our community coming together and being positive. And so to then hear someone say you can't eat the produce and you can't eat the fish, to me is astounding, and I will not, as Shadow Minister for Primary Industries, allow comments to be continued to made in this place without being called to account and being corrected, so that those things don't get repeated over time, because it's not just about politics and it's just not about scoring points, but it's about people. And the reason why I'm here in this place is to support, care for and provide great opportunities to both stand with and support, but also to get out of the way when I need to, for people in Tasmania. This is all about supporting people, and that's whether it's about making sure they've got a great job, making sure that they're in a community that is supported and surviving to ensure that those industries continue, but it's about mums and dads and kids, it's about extended family, it's about friends, it's about the way that we stand up and support each other. So in my primary industry space with farming, I want to work together across this parliament. I know that the Minister and myself have already talked about that, and that's what the people of Tasmania expect. In the fishing space, it's great to have a new member in the chamber, and I have to say, we've not met, don't really know you particularly well, but I've received a letter into my office already that had been previously sent to a former minister that you responded in a very caring and thoughtful way, and that said to me, we're going to work on things together. Our fishers in Tasmania need us to be positive for them when they're faced with the challenges in this place and across the community from a small number of people. We need to be cooperative, and I know that there is some imbalance in the fishing sectors in Tasmania, whether it be with our abalone divers or whether it be our rock lobster fishers. There seems to be a concern or an imbalance in the systems where local people fishing in local communities in our local ports are under pressure. And I talked about mental health before. There are lots of concerns for Tasmanians that are fishing Tasmanian fish here that need to be supported. So someone said this morning that Liberal and Labor are all about big business, and you need investment, you need large organisations, you need that wealth in a system for them to be supported, but we need to remember the individuals and their families and their communities. We need to remember that they're the people that support the footy clubs, and they're the people that bake in the bakeries, that they're extended communities, whether it be on the east coast with our rock lobster fishers, whether it be on the west coast with our salmon farmers. They're critical to the future success of our Tasmanian communities. And having just mentioned the West Coast and salmon, I want to make other comments as well around concerns that have been expressed in this place around, and I can't remember exactly what was said, but from memory, a member for Bradham stood on his feet and said that the salmon fishing in Macquarie Harbour happened off the back of 10 months of science from a Malaysian company. Now, you can't continue to say things like that in this place when they're not true, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that when things are said in this place that we correct them, because there was multiple assessments done over a period of time by some globally significant nationally and local scientists to ensure that decisions were made. I'm not sure quite what was intended by reflecting on the company being Malaysian, but I can assure you that right now, salmon farmers across Tasmania, whether they be looking at Storm Bay in the Huon, whether they be on the west coast, whether they be in our inland waters, whether they be in our processing places, they are some of the most passionate and caring and thoughtful people that are doing what they do to support their families and their communities, and they need our support. They don't need people to stand up and seek to undermine them. One of the things that I would like to bring to the attention of the Minister, though, is that there is one particular thing that connects all fisheries, whether it be our salmon farmers, whether it be our wild fisheries, whether it be our rock lobster, whether it be our recreational fishers, and that is funding for science. And one of the things that I'm determined to do in my time here in the Parliament is ensure that decisions that are made soundly, based on fact and based on science. And it was brought to my attention in the lead up to the last election that there has been a lessening of the funding of the investment made towards science in Tasmania, which is actually having a real impact both on information available but also on the people that are fishing and also the fish themselves. The SMRCA funding that the government actually provide to IMAS to do the research, in a lot of jurisdictions around Australia, the governments themselves do their research and conduct the science. Well, in Tasmania that's done at arm's length through IMAS, but it's done under contract. Now, nowhere in the real world would yourself or I or anyone else in the community expect to engage someone for a certain amount of work but only give them, 2/3 of the funds to deliver that. They just wouldn't fly in the real world. And I am concerned that the reduction in the percentage of SMRCA funding that's been provided to IMAS has been dwindled over time, which is putting more pressure on them to cut essential programs and services, and that's having a real impact in Tasmania. So I'm hopeful that the new minister in this area will look to correct that, to ensure that our work, for instance, that's being happened with the, whether it be our Sand Flathead or whether it be our Maugean Skate, where people are doing long-term work and seeking to correct something over time, that the funding is more than a year. It is actually sufficient to do the work, and that it ensures that the things that are important to Tasmanians and protect that Tasmanian way in life are invested in fully to ensure that the great scientists that we have here, that for many have come from around the country, around the world to give their expertise to projects here in Tasmania, are able to be continued to be invested in for the protection of our people and whether it be the fish or whether it be the farmers or the fishers that do that. I think that's something that's really important. One of the new areas that I've got responsibility is energy and renewables, and talking about science, talking about data, talking about certainty and information. I think it's really important that when decisions are made and announcements are made and commitments are made, that there is an ability for us to trust that action will follow. Now, it was just yesterday, I'm fairly sure, or the day before, that the Minister for Energy announced consultation for the renewable energy zones. Now, there is nothing more important than energy generation in Tasmania now. We know that there are businesses that want to decarbonise that don't have access to enough energy, electric energy in Tasmania to do that. So generation is a priority. But when you've got people saying in the first 100 days we are going to declare a renewable energy zone, and then coming into this parliament saying, well, we're going to consult. But in fact, actually, we first talked about this because I think it was in 2018 and we started preparing the consultation in 2022. You can't just keep kicking the can down on the road on critical issues and expect that no one's going to notice or people aren't watching. It is possible, with all of the information that we know and with all of the work that should have been done already, that these areas should be declared. We have got significant wind generation projects that are relying on action of this government. Tasmanian Labor believe that this should be the easiest place to do business in Australia. We want it to be the best place to do business and the best place to generate wind generation and renewable energy. But at the moment, this government make it hardest and they also make it the slowest. We're losing investment opportunity in Tasmania, not just to other places in the country, but around the world, because we are not acting with the appropriate amounts of urgency required to secure the investment that's actually just waiting there, hoping to have the certainty created by this government. We've got Whaleback Ridge and Robbins Island that Tasmanian Labor fully support, that are waiting ready to come online and to start their processes. But that is the delays in that is holding back critical projects in Tasmania like Able Energy in my own electorate, or like the HIF project. There are lots of things that this government have said that they've been working on, that said that they're preparing for, that have said that they're inviting in and looking forward to ensuring happen in Tasmania. But what I hear in the first few weeks of my portfolio area is that there's a lack of urgency, there's a lack of action, and unless things actually start to turn around almost in the next 30 days or 60 days, we are going to lose more opportunities here where those investments are being competed for within companies in other parts of the world. And so whether it be in primary industries, whether it be in energy, the information and the feedback seems to be the same, that this government have lacked the capacity to deliver on the ideas that they have. They are great at making announcements, great at talking about things that might happen, but not as confident or competent at actually delivering the outcomes that this community need. Now, I can step that back into examples in the local community. This week, it is the National Palliative Care Week. and in our local community in Bass, there have been years, almost a decade, of people waiting for a northern hospice to be delivered in northern Tasmania. Now, the government have made announcements about that. They've made commitments to that. They've even announced a location where it can be held. But in order for the hospice to be delivered in Bass, there needs to be a relocation of existing services in the Allambie building. Now, my question to the Minister is, has there been any work commenced on the relocation, on the decanting of that building so that the hospice project can actually commence? Because we know that there have been many families and many individuals that have been waiting on the promise of that project that are being sadly let down because of the time that it takes to move through such projects. There was a big fanfare yesterday around another local community project, the community hub in the northern suburbs. Now, this is a great project, and there's been talk about progress and a tender's been let for this sports project. But in fact, the vision for this project was about being a community hub, a place that could support the community that it's located within and bring in services from around the area, bring in wraparound services to support the local community where they could have engagement and activities and see things in a different way, not just about pure sports. There are local organisations that were promised spaces and ways to be able to participate and engage in that facility that seem to have been lost. They're feeling forgotten. And so the other thing for this government to remember through this term is that, yes, make announcements, yes, follow up, yes, say that you're progressing things, but don't forget the initial reason why these things were put on the agenda. Whether it be sports organisations or community organisations, the initial vision from the former Mayor of the Launceston City Council, Albert Van Zetten, for the community hub in Bass was about a place to support and grow and allow to thrive that local community, and it feels like that essence has been lost. On Flinders Island, which is in Bass, in the election period, it became very apparent that some of the blockages to productivity on the island are simple things like childcare, more complex things like the provision of housing. One of the things that astounded me as the Shadow Minister for Primary Industries learning about Flinders Island is that Flinders Island physically have a school farm. At that school, they don't have an ag program. It was only as a result of a very impassioned new teacher to the school last year that they opened up their woodwork studio after a decade of it being closed. They don't have a welder on site, so they don't have a metal program. It is an agricultural community and they don't have an ag program and an operational school farm. That's something that I'd like to focus on in this term of Parliament. In Scottsdale with Dorset, there are calls, urgent calls for the report to be released around the council there. When is that going to happen? Over 14 days ago now, it was meant to be released in the next 7 days. The community are waiting and deserve the information around their future. In Georgetown, we know that the best place and the best way to support people to engage in their community is through employment. And there's a great project going on there with the Future Impact group and their launchpad. And the Speaker and myself visited there and recognised the importance of that program to continue to support that local community. But it needs continued support and investment for that to happen. That's how you support communities, and that is how you get them to engage with confidence and to support a thriving economy. In Launceston, there have been suggestions that the community hub, the recreational hub, will provide solutions to concerns with local sporting infrastructure. The reality is there are so many layers of need of support in our local community that not one single thing will support that. In the election, we made a commitment to basketball courts, and that was backed up by this Liberal government. And so there is a hope that that work will happen as a matter of urgency. If other sports from Elphin could be decanted to other places and it could become a home of basketball, then that would actually help with court shortages. It would help young people with their future in basketball. We know at the netball courts down at Hobblers Bridge Road, a lack of supportive infrastructure and a lack of access there is making it unsafe for many, dark at night time. There are a lot of challenges within Bass and across Tasmania. But what they need is for us to work cooperatively together. What they need is for this government is to not just make announcements, but to follow up with action and to be serious about the action and the activity and the needs of our community to ensure that good things happen, that investments are made, that we don't lose opportunity to other places, and that our community are understood, that they are cared for, that they remain having a feeling of being connected to our community, that they believe things are possible because they trust the process. When I asked about one of my other portfolio areas in science and technology, someone said that in Tasmania we need to continue to be curious, to feel positive about the future.
The member's time has expired, and before